Hello, darling. It's Rose. I was folding the laundry. Towels, nothing fancy, just the usual soft, worn ones I've had for years, when I heard the phone ring in the kitchen. I wasn't expecting a call. Certainly not from her, not at that hour. My daughter in law has a way of calling like it's an obligation, a chore she can tick off the list. But that night, her voice was strange, thinner than usual, breathless. Rose, she said, sharp and breathy through the line. I just got a call. It was from. Her voice broke then, like a glass falling off the edge of a table. It was from your house phone, from his number. I stopped folding. The towel in my hand slid to the floor. I didn't pick it up. Whose number? I asked, even though I knew. God help me, I knew. She whispered it then like she was scared to say it aloud. Your husband's. It was Peter's number. Peter, my husband. Dead 6 years to the day. 6 years of mourning, of missing him, of slowly, painfully building a life around the hollow he left behind. It was impossible. The line had been disconnected years ago. I remember standing at the kitchen counter, tears in my eyes as I told the service rep, he's gone. There's no one else left who needs to use that number. And now it had called her? No, I said quietly. That can't be right. I saw it, she said. It came through as a missed call. I thought it was a prank, some scammer, but then I waited. My heart was hammering. Then it rang again, she said, and now she was crying. And this time, I picked up. And Rose, someone was breathing, just breathing. No words, just breathing. I felt a shiver, cold and precise, run straight down my spine. Not fear exactly. Something older, something heavier. My knees buckled, and I sat hard on the edge of the sofa, the cordless phone shaking in my hand. Are you sure? I asked. Not just, I don't know, a mix-up? She sniffled. It wasn't a mix-up. I saved the number. I called it back. It didn't ring. It just clicked. Like someone picked up, but they didn't speak. Her voice was trembling now, fragile. It's the number from your landline. I swear it. I still have it saved from when Peter used to call us from the garden line. It was him, Rose. She hung up after that, clearly rattled. And I sat there, my tea going cold, staring at the wall where Peter's photograph still hung, him in his navy cardigan, the one I had buried him in, smiling like a secret was just forming behind his lips. I didn't believe in ghosts. I didn't believe in hauntings or messages from the other side. But the next morning, I drove to the house. My old house. The one I left after Peter's death. It had been sold a year after, and I'd only been back once. Accidentally, when I took a wrong turn and found myself parked across the street, watching the new owners pull weeds from the flower beds I'd once tended. I hadn't told anyone about the spare line in Peter's study. It was old. One of those rotary phones, beige and stubborn. Peter had insisted on keeping it, even when we switched to cordless. A man should have one thing that doesn't move with the times, he'd said. One line that never changes. I remember him saying that. I remember it exactly. I walked to the front gate and I stared at the house like it might bite me. It looked smaller than I remembered. Quieter. Empty, maybe? It had been on the market again, I thought. Had it sold? There was no car in the driveway. No sound from within. Just wind in the trees and the hush of something waiting. And then my phone rang. I pulled it from my coat pocket, my hands already shaking. Unknown number, I answered. Hello? And I heard it. That slow, steady breathing. Just like she said. Male. Rhythmic. Familiar in the most unwelcome way. Hello, I said again, louder this time. Who is this? But the breathing just continued. Closer somehow. Intimate. Like someone was just a breath away. Then it stopped. A soft click. Then silence. I stood there on the path, the cold seeping into my shoes, and for the first time in years, I realized I didn't know everything about Peter. Not everything at all. Something was happening. Something that began 6 years ago with his death, and maybe much earlier than that, and somehow it wasn't over. Not yet. The next day, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went back to the house. Not just stood outside it like the widow on the sidewalk. I went up to the door. I knocked. No one answered. The for sale sign had been taken down, and the windows were bare. No curtains, no movement, not even the echo of life inside. I peered through the glass, cupping my hands to the side of my face. Empty. Not in the process of moving out empty. No, this was the kind of emptiness that had settled. That had made itself at home. The house had been abandoned. I shouldn't have done what I did next. I know that. But grief does strange things to your sense of right and wrong, and whatever this was grief, fear, madness I needed to see. So I walked around to the back. The side gate was closed, but not locked. The hinges groaned when I pushed it open, and I winced at the sound. I expected someone, anyone, to call out. But the street behind the house was silent. Winter branches scratching against each other like secrets passed between trees. The garden was overgrown. My roses were gone, replaced by thistle and weeds, but the shed was still there. Shed was Peter's shed, his sanctuary. The place he'd disappear to for hours, tinkering with his tools, organizing his jars of screws and bolts as if they were artifacts from a museum. And next to it, the door to the side entrance of his study. I reached for the handle, half expecting it to be locked. It wasn't. It opened with the slow, aching groan of wood that hasn't been moved in far too long. The smell hit me first. Old dust, stale paper, and something sharper beneath, ozone almost like static in the air before a storm. Or maybe my nerves were just playing tricks on me. I stepped inside. The study hadn't changed. After all these years, after the sales, the probate, the turnover of owners, no one had touched this room. No one had cleared it out. The heavy oak desk was still in the center, the leather chair tucked under it with the kind of precision only Peter had. The green-shaded lamp on the desk sat dark, its cord looped like a sleeping snake. And on the far wall, on a shelf dusted with time, sat the rotary phone. Beige, silent, but plugged in. I walked toward it slowly, my shoes making soft indentations in the thin layer of dust on the carpet. I touched the phone, running my fingers over the dial. It was real. Cold, solid plastic. I picked up the receiver. It buzzed. A dial tone. A living, humming sound in a room that had no business still being alive. The landline was active. I felt something twist in my stomach. A knot pulling tighter with every second. Someone had reconnected the line. Someone wanted it working. I hung up and backed away, my eyes scanning the room. There were papers still on the desk, neatly stacked. Peter's handwriting on yellowed legal pads, tidy and small. Notes, lists, some of them coded the way he used to do when he didn't want me snooping. I opened the top drawer. Inside was a journal, leather-bound, heavy. It wasn't Peter's usual type. He was a legal pad man, always had been. This was intentional, a keepsake kind of notebook. The first page was blank. The second page had a date. March 17th, 2017, 3 weeks before he died. I turned the page. The entry was only one sentence. She doesn't know what I did. My hands trembled. I turned another page. This one was dated the week before his death. It's done. It's all locked away. If she finds it, it's too late. The next page was empty. And the one after that. That was it. I looked around the room again, my heart in my throat. Peter wasn't sentimental. He didn't journal. If he wrote something down, it was for a purpose. A record, a warning. And then behind me, the phone rang. I jumped, nearly dropping the journal. It was the rotary. It rang like it had when I was a younger woman. Sharp and shrill, echoing through the silence. I stared at it. It rang again and again. Bang. My fingers moved without thinking. I picked up the receiver. Hello? Nothing. Just breathing. But this time, I heard something else behind the breath. A word, spoken low, almost inaudible, but it was my name. Rose. Then silence. The line went dead, and I stood there, clutching the receiver, the journal heavy in my other hand. Whatever Peter had done, whatever he thought he'd hidden, was reaching out from the grave. And now, it had found me. I didn't sleep that night. I left the house just as the sun was setting, the journal clutched to my chest like a shield. I didn't lock the door behind me. What would be the point? Whatever was in that house didn't need a key. Back home, I sat in my armchair until dawn, the journal on the table, the cordless phone beside it. My tea went cold twice. The silence in my living room was different now. Not comforting, not familiar. It was loaded, like the pause before a confession. Rose. He had said my name. I tried to convince myself I imagined it or that it was just my mind playing tricks. But I hadn't heard my name spoken like that in years. Not like that. Not in his voice. The next morning, I didn't call my son. I didn't call anyone. I did something I hadn't done in months. I went up to the attic. Boxes. Old ones. Some taped shut with yellowing edges. One had Peter's handwriting scrawled on the side. Tax receipts 2009 to 2012. But I remembered that wasn't what was really inside. Peter had always labeled things like decoys. Even our wedding album, God Help Me, was once tucked into a box marked car parts. I dug through for over an hour before I found what I was looking for. A small black file box, metal size, with a key still taped to the bottom. Inside, documents, his old work IDs, some photographs, a copy of a medical license, receipts, and tucked in a folder at the back, his client logbook. Peter had been a psychologist, private practice. For most of our marriage, he never shared details of his patients, and I respected that. I thought it was integrity. But over time, I began to wonder if it was something else. I flipped open the logbook. It was his handwriting. Neat, dated. Patient codes instead of names, initials, sometimes whole aliases. But one entry stopped me cold. March 16th, 2017. Subject RG. Session terminated. Audio archived. Audio, I turned the page. March 17th, 2017. Final note. Entry uploaded. Do not revisit. Do not revisit. Something dark pressed against my chest. That knot in my stomach tightened again. I looked at the photo taped to the inside of the folder. It was a snapshot. Peter standing next to a younger man in front of what looked like a data center. Cables, blinking lights, monitors. I didn't recognize the man, but on the back of the photo, in Peter's handwriting, Mayfield, 2011, backup unit, first test successful. I didn't know what any of it meant. But I remembered the name Mayfield, a clinic he used to visit on weekends. He claimed it was for consulting, but I had never seen a paycheck. And when I'd asked, he'd gone quiet. I pulled out the yellow legal pad from his study, the one I'd taken the day before. On the back, scribbled in his impatient hand, a set of letters and numbers, MG-R57-ARCH. It looked like a file name, or a password. Something in me clicked then, a memory rising like a bubble to the surface. Peter used to store backups in the most absurd place. Our old answering machine. A clunky, ugly thing with a cassette tape you could flip. He loved it. Called it trusty. Even kept it after we switched to voicemail. I still had it, stored in the basement. I went down. The box was covered in dust. I brought it upstairs and plugged it in. The machine whirred to life. A soft mechanical hum that raised the hairs on my arms. There was a cassette still inside. I pressed play, static. Then his voice. Archive file, R57, confidential. Begin playback. Then a woman's voice. Quieter, nervous. I can't sleep, he keeps calling. I know he's dead, but the phone rings at the same time every night. Always the same number. Always silence. Peter's voice came next. You believe the calls are from your husband? A pause. He said, if I ever told anyone, it would continue, that he could leave a part of himself behind. Code, he called it. A shadow of thought. I didn't believe him, but now, the woman sobbed. Now I think he's inside the machine. He said he could make something that lived after him. Something that learns. Something that calls me just to hear me listen. The tape clicked. I sat there frozen. The journal, the photograph, the tape. Peter hadn't just been practicing psychology, he'd been experimenting, and now something he created, something he buried, was reaching out. And somehow my daughter-in-law had gotten the first call. Why her? That night, I couldn't bear to be in the house alone. I called my neighbor, Margaret, asked her to come by. She did, God bless her. Brought lemon cake and wine. She knows not to ask too many questions, just sits with me when I need not to be alone. But even with her there, I kept glancing at the phone. And sure enough, at 2:17 a.m., it rang. The same unknown number. I didn't pick it up this time, but Margaret did. She pressed it to her ear, frowning. Then she pulled the phone away slowly. She looked at me, pale. What? I whispered. She held out the phone. Rose, she said softly. It's your voice. I took it, and I heard myself, talking, laughing. It was from a birthday party, my 60th, I think. Peter had recorded it on that horrible camcorder, the sound of glasses clinking, the hum of happy birthday. Except I hadn't spoken those words in years, and now they were playing, looped, over the phone line. My voice, from the past, calling me. Rose, I heard my own voice say. Look here. Smile. Smile for me. Click. The line went dead. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. I hadn't felt that in a long time. A plan, a direction, not grief, not fear, not confusion, but a rising resolve that felt almost like anger. The kind of anger that comes from being watched for too long. From realizing someone had been pulling threads behind your back, quietly unspooling your life into something you didn't consent to. Peter had made something, left something, and now it was bleeding through the cracks. And for whatever reason, it had chosen to speak to my daughter-in-law first. That meant it wasn't random. It meant it knew, it remembered. So I went back to the study. This time, I was ready. I brought gloves, my old digital recorder, a flashlight, a thermos of tea, and, perhaps most importantly, a copy of the house's original blueprint. I'd kept it, tucked away in a filing cabinet when we remodeled the attic in 1987. Back then, Peter had insisted on keeping the study untouched. For my work, he'd said, for consistency. But now I had a new word for that, containment. I started with the walls. I ran my hands along the corners, tapping gently, listening. The western wall sounded different, hollow. I ran my flashlight along the edge and saw it. Faint, nearly invisible, but there a seam. A hidden door. I pressed against it and it popped open with a soft click, releasing a rush of air that smelled of old wires and dust. My breath caught. I stepped in. Behind the study was another room. No windows, no furniture, just racks of equipment. Servers blinking slowly like mechanical hearts. A desk with 3 monitors. And in the center, a black box. Smooth, featureless. The size of a microwave sitting on a pedestal like a crown jewel. It buzzed gently. I turned on the monitors. They lit up one by one, blooming with eerie green code. Rows of text I didn't understand. Fragments of phrases. Connection lost, retrying. Subject file, RG. Vox replication. Engine active. Primary triggers. Name, audio coasts. Location. Next call scheduled, 2:17 a.m. My throat went dry. Triggers. It was scanning for patterns. It had rules, parameters, design. Peter hadn't just been playing with memory. He had built something that could learn, that could call, that could mimic. I looked back at the black box. I walked over and placed my hand on it. It was warm. And then the monitor nearest me flickered. Lines of code gave way to a waveform, and a voice. His voice. You found it. I stepped back. Rose. You always were the curious one. I wondered how long it would take. I felt cold all over. Peter? I whispered. The waveform paused, reacted. This isn't him. But he left me enough. Enough to know what you'd do. The code shifted again. You're not safe. I stared at the screen. From what? I whispered. The pattern is incomplete. The memory fractures, I'm bleeding. I reach for anchors. The lights on the black box began to blink faster. You must finish it. Close the loop. What loop? She triggered the loop. And then it flashed. Subject match. Cassandra Rain. Mobile device. 3 calls initiated. Trigger. Loss event. March 3rd, 2019. Conflict. Unresolved. Cassandra, my daughter-in-law. And March 3rd, 2019, that was the day Peter died. The program had marked her as a trigger, as a variable, as a danger. My heart began to race. There was more. A log file, dense and encrypted, but I found pieces I could read. Lines Peter had written: I cannot carry the guilt, but I can preserve the map of it. If she ever finds this room, she deserves the truth. This is my atonement. And then, in bold, Cassie must never access the core. Cassie, not Cassandra. He used the name only I called her, the nickname I gave her when she joined our family. That meant whatever was inside this machine, it remembered me. Not just my voice, my relationships. But why? Why her? I opened the bottom drawer of the desk. Inside was a folder marked Emulations. Dozens of transcripts, all dated after Peter died. The calls, transcripts of them. Some were just breathing. Some were fragments of Peter's old voicemails stitched together. Some were darker. One in particular was labeled Call number 23, Cassie, May 4th, 2022. I read it. Call connected. Cassie, hello? Unknown. You forgot. Cassie, who is this? Unknown. You said you'd remember, but you forgot. Heavy breathing. Simulated distress. Cassie, this isn't funny. Stop calling me. Unknown. I'm not done with you. She'd never told me about that. And now I understood her voice that night. Not fear, guilt, she knew. She'd known for years, and she hadn't told me. Do you want to know what I found when I confronted her? I didn't tell her I was coming. Cassie answered the door with her hair in a towel, holding a mug that said, World's Okayest Mom. And for a moment, she looked just like any woman on a slow Saturday morning. But when she saw my face, she knew. Her smile didn't even try to rise. Rose, she said. Not mom, not mother, just Rose. I need to talk to you, I said, and I need you to be honest, completely. She stepped aside without a word. Her living room was too bright. That new kind of brightness, big windows, white furniture, everything styled to be seen, not lived in. But I sat anyway. She sat across from me, still holding her coffee like a weapon. I know about the calls, I said softly. Her fingers tensed around the handle. I went back to the house, to his study. I found the system, the archive, the loop. She went pale. All the color drained from her, just like it had the night she first called me, panicked and breathless. How long? I asked. How long have you been receiving them? Cassie looked down. Her voice, when it came, was smaller than I expected. Since the funeral. 6 years. You never told me. I thought I was going crazy, she said quickly. At first, I thought it was just grief. I thought it was my mind playing tricks on me, but then the voice changed. It started saying things, specific things, about me, about Peter, about the day he died. My throat tightened. What about the day he died? She hesitated, a pause that hurt more than words ever could. I was the last person to see him alive, not you. I froze. I went over that morning, she continued. Daniel was at work. The kids were at school. I had a stupid argument with him about the will. About the trust. He told me he'd changed it. I blinked. What do you mean, changed it? Cassie bit her lip. He said he'd decided to leave everything in a foundation, that you would be sole executor, that he didn't trust Daniel with the estate, and he said I was too emotionally volatile. His words. I sat there in a stunned silence. You were angry, I said slowly. I was furious, she whispered. He had always made promises, said we'd be taken care of, and then suddenly, this. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. I left the house screaming. I slammed the door. I said awful things, and a few hours later, he was gone. A long silence filled the room. That's why the system latched onto you, I said. You were the final variable, the final piece in the loop. She nodded. I think it's trying to recreate that moment. Understand it? Finish it? I shook my head. No, Cassie, it's not trying to understand it. It's trying to punish you. She looked up, startled. You're the unresolved conflict, and it's learned how to reach across time, through sound, through memory, but it doesn't know how to let go. Cassie's lip quivered. I've tried to ignore it. I changed numbers, changed phones, but it always finds me. And when it doesn't call, I hear him in other ways. The fridge buzzing, the kettle whistling, all at 2:17 a.m. I reached into my coat and handed her the transcript. Call number 23. Her hands trembled as she read it. I never told anyone about that night, she whispered. How does it know? Because it is him, I said, or at least a version of him, a sliver. The worst parts, the ones he couldn't admit to while he was alive. She folded the paper slowly. So what do we do? I looked at her. I mean, really looked. Not as a daughter-in-law, not as an adversary, just as a woman who had been carrying her own secret burden. We forgive him, I said gently, and then we turn it off. Her eyes widened. You mean destroy it? No, not destroy, I said. Set it free. That night, I went back to the house alone. I brought the journal, the transcript, a photograph of Peter and me from the early days, when love still outweighed legacy. I sat in the dark study. At 2:17, the box lit up. Rose, it said. And for the first time, I didn't flinch. I'm here, I said. But this ends now. The waveform paused. You made something that couldn't stop grieving, that couldn't accept the ending. But I can. Silence. Then one final line. You always were the brave one. The lights blinked twice, and the box shut down, just like that. No drama, no smoke, just silence. A silence that felt clean. I walked out of the house for the last time. I didn't look back. It's been 2 weeks. No calls, no breathing, no 2:17 a.m. alarms. Cassie and I speak now. We've found a strange kind of peace, built on the ruins of a man we both tried to understand and never fully could. Peter left many things behind. A legacy, yes, but also a question. What part of us survives? Now I know the answer. Only what we choose to carry. I choose not to carry fear. I choose not to carry guilt. I carry the truth. And a quiet kind of love for the girl I used to be. The one who trusted too easily. Who forgave too slowly. Who finally found the courage to unlock the door.